Now I'm going to walk you through some additional exercises that are focused on this concept of self as context. I'm going to start you off with one that's very simple and straightforward, and then we're going to go into one that's a little bit more in depth. The first one is the holding an object exercise. And I learned that from one of my supervisors in grad school. They primarily work with kids. They would hold out their hand and they would place an object into their hand. Let's say you had a piece of candy and you put it in your hand and ask them, "Who am I?" And they're like, "Well, you're Dr. Kate." Like, "Right, but I'm holding this candy. Am I still Dr. Kate or am I now candy?" And they're like, "What? No, you're not candy. You're Dr. Kate." Like, "Well, right, but I'm holding candy. How can I be Dr. Kate and also hold candy at the same time?" When we look at a concept in this way, it seems very simple. You're still you and you're holding candy. As soon as you hold candy, you don't suddenly become candy. This is the same as how we hold our internal experiences. I can still be Kate and hold the thought, "I'm tired today." You can still be someone with OCD and hold the thought, "I might harm my child." We hold those thoughts, but it doesn't then make them us. Now, this can be thoughts, this can be roles, this can be identities, this can be emotions. But when we practice this observer stance, it's getting into contact with that part of ourselves that is holding these things. And so you can ask clients to practice this in particular when they feel very entangled with those particular experiences that they're having, to say, "Hey, let's practice holding that one right now and noticing who's holding it." And so they could actually put out their hand and imagine the thought or the emotion sitting in their hand and say, "I'm holding that. I am still here. I am constant and I'm holding the thought." This longer exercise is called the observer self exercise. It's a common self as context practice. It's one of the ones that was originally written about in ACT. And I come back to it time and time again because it is one that is consistently effective for my clients. Now, the full script for this takes about 30, 40 minutes to go through, depending on how long you pause and how long you settle into certain experiences. When you choose to do this in session with a client, I warn them, I say, "Hey, this is a long one. We're going to devote much of the session to walking through this practice, and then we'll talk about how it goes after." I'm actually going to walk through some of that with you today. Obviously, we don't have time to do 40 minutes of it, but we're going to go through some of it so you can get a sense of what this experience is. I'd invite you to join me in doing this practice, meaning you're welcome to close your eyes, sit back in a relaxed but alert position so you can listen and practice what this exercise is all about. Go ahead and sit back if you're choosing to do the practice with me today, and close your eyes. And for a moment, turn your attention to yourself in the space you're in right now, getting in touch with your body, inside of your skin. Notice if you have any bodily sensations that arise. And as you see each one, just sort of acknowledge it and allow your consciousness to move on. Notice any emotions you're having. And again, just acknowledge them. Get in touch with your thoughts and just quietly watch them for a few moments. I want you to notice that as you noticed these, there's a part of you that noticed them. You noticed those sensations, those emotions, those thoughts. And that part of you we will call the observer you. There is a person here behind those eyes that is aware of what I am saying right now and is the same person you've been your whole life. And in some deep sense, this observer you is the you that you call you. I want you to remember something that happened last summer. Remember all the things that were happening then, the sights, the sounds, your feelings. And as you do that, see if you can notice that you were there then, noticing what you were noticing. See if you can catch the person behind your eyes who saw and heard and felt. You were there then, and you are here now. I'm just asking you to note the experience of being aware and just check and see if it isn't so that in some deep sense, the you that is here now was also there then. And the person aware of what you are aware of is here now and was there then. See if you can notice that essential continuity in some deep sense. At the level of experience, you have been you your whole life. Now I want you to remember something that happened when you were a teenager. Remember all the things that were happening then, the sights, the sounds, your feelings, and see if just for a second you can catch that there was a person behind your eyes who saw and heard and felt all of this. You were there then too. And see if it isn't true. There is an essential continuity between the person aware of what you are aware of now and the person who was aware of what you were aware of as a teen in that specific situation. You have been you your whole life. And now imagine yourself in the room that you're in this moment. When you are ready, you can open your eyes. This is the beginning stages of the observer self exercise. And as you may have experienced, clients start to notice that there is a part of themselves that's been constant throughout their lives and throughout different stages of their lives. The remainder of this exercise goes into taking that stance of the observer self and noticing your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, the different roles that you're in, and seeing that you can have these things, but you are something separate from that. And that is that observer self. Again, this allows people to take a more detached stance with the content that they're experiencing. At the end of this session, as with any, you'll be setting practices for them to do at home. And this just depends on what practice you did in session of what you're going to have them do at the end or throughout the week or between your sessions. What I've done is I create handouts for clients to complete based on the practice that we did that day. For example, the observer exercise, I have this handout where I say, what is the obsession? Did you practice taking the observer stance? Just yes or no. And what did you notice? This may be something like, I noticed myself taking a step back from it. I noticed getting in touch with that constant part of me. And then asking, how do you experience that obsession now? And if all goes as intended, they may say something like, I just see it as being there. This is just a practice for them to attend to their experience when they take that observer stance and what they learn from that. And then, as with any of our sessions, we're going to be setting behavioral commitments as well, in addition to their self as context practices. Our key points here are that we walked through additional practices of self as context that include the observer self and holding an object. At the end of session 6, you'll set home practice plans that include the self as context practices that are relevant based on what you covered in session. And then finish the session with setting behavioral commitments similar to all the other sessions that we've covered.